How can a bounty hunter that specifically sets his sights on demons possibly have anything to teach us about peace? Let's stick a binding scroll in our possessed sister's mouth and find out. Good morning, nerds. I'm Nathan, your nerd pastor here at Checkpoint Church, and we are so glad that you are here with us again for day 2 of our Peace Week. We thank you for joining us for this latest entry in the Advent of the Nerd series, where we're tackling all these characters and what they might have to tell us about how we can be better people, better Christians, better humans, whoever you are, wherever you might be. The scripture for today comes from the first book of the New Testament, the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verses 43 through 46. I'll be reading from the NRSV just because that's my preferred translation. It'll be on the screen. If you have another translation you'd prefer to use, feel free. An important thing to know, these are Jesus's words. With that, let's get into it. You've heard that it was said, "You shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy." But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be children of your Father in heaven. For he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the righteous and on the unrighteous. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? Our hero for today is Tanjiro Kamado, who has gotten ridiculously popular from the recent craze over the hit anime Demon Slayer, which was originally based off a manga. This anime happened to hit during a time where I was kind of on a lull on my anime viewing, so I missed it entirely and have started hopping on the craze a little bit late. And let me go ahead and tell you, one thing about this anime and this manga, they don't waste a minute. From chapter 1 of this manga, Tanjiro's entire family is slaughtered. Like literally everyone that he's ever known. He like steps away for half a second to go and do an errand or whatever, and he comes back and the only one alive is his little sister, Nezuko. Here's the thing though, she's actually been infected, a la Resident Evil, and is now a demon herself and tries to kill Tanjiro. I just want to say I love my siblings very much, really. I love them. But you get zombified, you're gone. This is where things get really fun in the story. So the sister attacks Tanjiro, and Tanjiro fights back, but he's not trying to kill her. Instead, Tanjiro tries to save her, convincing her to stop, and eventually leading to her mouth getting bound so that she can't bite him and infect him. So Tanjiro vows in this moment that he's going to find a way to reverse the disease and heal his sister, thus beginning Demon Slayer. So I know what you're thinking. Maybe Tanjiro is just a really good family man, right? Maybe he just really loves his sibling. He just really wants, it's the last person left, and so he wants to save her. Tanjiro becomes a Demon Slayer because he wants to save his sister. It's not just because he wants to slay demons or be some kind of a bounty hunter. Instead, he doesn't want to kill demons at all. Definitely at the beginning, and for the most part throughout the entire series, every demon that Tanjiro meets for the first time, he kind of trusts and likes and doesn't want to hurt. It's not until after he learns that a demon is corrupted and has malintent that he actually decides to go through with anything more serious. And even still, Tanjiro would prefer to spare them in these cases. Worst case scenario, things go really bad for Tanjiro and he ends up having to kill the demons. He prays for them. Literally right after he protects himself or ends the demon's life who's killing other people, whatever the case might be, he ends up praying for their soul to achieve some kind of peace or to be reincarnated as not a demon the second time. See, I think this is what really sets Tanjiro and Demon Slayer apart. Demon Slayer is what we consider a shonen manga, which is actually just a manga for boys. It just means a comic for young men. Typically, these stories like Dragon Ball Z and One Piece and these kind of things feature a character who's brazen and reckless and seeking a good fight. But Tanjiro is actually an empath. More on that in just a minute. First, let's look at our passage. So Matthew 5 is the first chapter of a greater arc of chapters known as the Sermon on the Mount. In this passage, we get to hear Jesus teaching to a large crowd of folks. More than likely, this is kind of a compilation series of a bunch of sermons that he might have preached in a bunch of different places. One of the things that was really great about these passages in particular is that Jesus has this really unique catchphrase format that gets people's attention. Most of the people that would have been listening to Jesus' messages would have been at least somewhat familiar with Jewish law. So they would know the first 5 books of the Old Testament and would consider that to be the law that they were supposed to follow. So Jesus' claim to fame is he would take those laws that everyone knew so well and he would do this structure. You've heard it said, ... but I tell you, ... Jesus often chooses to take out an Old Testament text and explain it more fully in this structure. For instance, this passage in Matthew 5 picks out Leviticus 19:18, this whole idea of loving your neighbor, hating your enemy. However, if you go back to Leviticus 19:18, what you're actually going to see was said really is just the same thing. The only thing that Leviticus 19:18 doesn't say is what Jesus says, which is, hey, maybe you should also love your enemy. From the outside looking in on this, what I think Jesus is doing is eliminating the nuance of Leviticus 19:18. He's saying, yeah, we said love your neighbor, and you guys took that to mean hate your enemy. But I tell you, when we say love your neighbor, we were actually talking about everybody and not just the neighbors that you like. And so Jesus just kind of outright says it. He's like, don't just love your neighbors, you bunch of dummies. Anybody can do that. Love your enemies. And Jesus doesn't even stop there. He goes one step further and says, don't just love them, you should pray for them. Now, why is he saying pray for them? He's saying you should go out of your way to wish the best for your enemies. Why does Jesus think that we should do this? What's the reason for this passage? He says so you can be children of the Father in heaven. Okay, that's kind of a weird thing to say, but who do we know that's a child of God? Jesus. This is just another way of saying to be like Jesus. Christian, little Christ, we're supposed to be like Jesus, and this is Jesus saying, hey, be like me, be like a child of the Father in heaven, and love your enemy as I love mine. Then Jesus offers up this kind of rain check. The good people and the bad people, the righteous and the unrighteous, your worst enemy and your best friend, guess what? They all have great days. And they all have really sucky rainy days. Back to Tanjiro. I want you to imagine for a moment that you literally lost everything, everyone. I cannot even imagine the pain. I cannot even imagine the feelings. Then imagine that you know who did it. Imagine the anger you would feel towards that person. What would you do if you ran into them or a member of their family or someone that they are like? You would probably want to take out revenge. You'd probably want to do something you'd regret. This is exactly the scenario that Tanjiro goes through. He literally knows who murdered his family. His sister is kind of one of them, and he runs into one after another after another. You would think even just on one that was really, really bad, Tanjiro might want to take out his frustration. But instead, Tanjiro genuinely loves them. He approaches them. He may not like them, okay? He may not be like fond of them by any mean, but every single one he gives the benefit of the doubt. Somehow this character in Tanjiro manages to deal and process these things and still find a way after the dust has settled to care for the soul of a monster that he's just forced to slay. I mean, imagine this feeling, even his sister, right? I mean, his sister wants to murder him. His sister wants to get his blood. And yet he looks her in the eyes, knowing that she's broken, knowing that she's evil, and he chooses her anyway. That's powerful stuff. Here's the reality. How many of us can even say that we have anything that comes close to what Tanjiro has gone through? I've never had my family slaughtered by demons, for instance. I've never really lost anyone in my direct family. I've had extended family, grandparents, those kind of things, but I've never lost anyone, certainly never to anyone with malintent. And yet, here I am living my life, having trouble forgiving the dude who cuts me off in traffic, or the person who thinks a bit differently than me, or the dudette who is rude to me at the store. I mean, do you even hear what I'm saying there? What if our lives were on the line? What if we took kindness so seriously as if our lives were on the line? Anyone can be nice to someone that loves them. Try finding a way to love, not like someone that you hate. If you're the praying type, try and pray for them. If you're the good vibesing type, send those vibes. This might be the most challenging idea in all of Christianity. This might be the hardest thing that Jesus asked us to do, is to somehow, above all things, manage to love someone that by all logical, rational reason we should hate. But just remember the look that Tanjiro gives Nezuko. Remember this glance that says, hey, I choose you anyway. Choose love anyway. After all, if Tanjiro had let the Demon Slayers kill Nezuko, who would all the cosplayers have cosplayed as that year? Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you're wondering what is next for you, well, if you're the praying type, there is going to be a prayer down in the description that I would encourage you to use and to look at. And if you're the journaling type, feel free to download our free guidebook, devotional guidebook. It's got blogs, it's got entries, it's got pages, it's got good things, it's helpful stuff. Consider using that to your advantage as well. And finally, if you're the talking type and don't really have enough room in the comment section down below, feel free to join us in our Discord, which is also linked down that description box, and we can have good conversation about this particular blog or about anything at all. I'm good to talk. Let's just talk. And with that, folks, we need to put Tanjiro up on that tree. And there we go. Day 2 of Peace is down, and I will see all of you tomorrow, same time, same place, where we talk about our third delightful and wonderful hero. Who's it going to be? And we got to be there to find out. And with that, this episode comes to a climactic finish. Folks, I will see you guys in the next one. Until next time, bye-bye.